Did you ever have one of those questions your kids throw at you and you're kind of caught off guard? Well, that happened to me this past week. My oldest asked me, let me back up. We were in a restaurant having family dinner talking about silly things and serious things, and my oldest said he wanted to go wash his hands before our food came. And as he came back to the table, he looked at me and he said, "Mom, you might know something about this because I think it has to do with race. Why are all the people in the back cooking black and all the people serving white? Does it have to do with racism?" And I looked around and I saw that he had made an accurate observation with one exception. There was a black man who was out with the servers who were all white women, but he was the busboy. And so I had a conversation with him about how racism limits what people can do and what people expect of others, and that we have a history of seeing black people as the people that cook, do menial labor, and there were times when restaurants wouldn't serve black people, let alone employ them to be the face of a restaurant. And so there's kind of this legacy of black people being in the kitchen. We could go back to a time when we were enslaved, and that was a role that was available. And that we have an expectation that we might be served by people who are seen as proper and capable. And the fact that we see black people only in the kitchen and not serving does not mean that they're not capable of that. It doesn't mean that the white people we see serving are better, but that it's a legacy of how we've done race and how race has limited the spaces that we're allowed to occupy. I share this to say kids are always observing what's happening around them. And so if you see an opportunity to explain a pattern that might have to do with racism or the legacy of racism, don't assume that your child doesn't see it. Be willing to have a conversation with them and attempt to explain what doesn't make a lot of sense, but it does in our history of racism in our society. So be willing to engage in those conversations with them, even when they don't bring it up, when you notice it, which means we have to be willing to, as adults, be aware and acknowledge where racism exists rather than cross our fingers and hope that it doesn't. So let's be real with our kids. If we want to raise children who are able to create an equitable society, if we as adults want to be a part of that creation, we have to be willing to name and acknowledge what is and tackle some of those hard questions that can come when we least expect them.